Chidera Okafor never believed in fate. But at 2:47 a.m. on a rainy Lagos night, fate had other plans. Her fingers flew across her phone screen, tears streaming down her face as she typed a message meant for her best friend Amaka. The text was raw, honest, desperate. "I can't do this anymore. My family wants me to marry Emeka next month, but I don't love him. I feel like I'm drowning and nobody sees me. I just want to disappear." She hit send without checking the number twice. 3 seconds later, her phone buzzed. But the response wasn't from Amaka. It was from an unknown international number. +82. The message read, "Don't disappear. Tell me where you are." Chidera's heart stopped. She looked at her screen again and realized with horror that she'd texted the wrong number. In her emotional state, she'd accidentally selected a contact she'd saved earlier that day. A business inquiry number from a Korean import company she'd found online for her small skincare business. She was supposed to text them tomorrow morning about bulk orders of K-beauty products. Her hands trembled as she quickly typed, "Sorry, wrong number. Please ignore." But the response came immediately. "It's 4:47 p.m. here in Seoul. I have the rest of my day free. And you said you're drowning. I don't ignore people who are drowning." Something about those words made Chidera's tears flow harder. A complete stranger, thousands of miles away, showed more concern than her own family had in months. Before she could stop herself, she was typing back, pouring out her heart to this unknown person. She told him about the arranged marriage, about her dreams of expanding her business, about feeling invisible in her own life. His name was Min-jun. Or at least that's what he told her. For the next 4 hours they talked. He didn't judge her. Didn't tell her what to do. Just listened. Questions. Made her laugh when she described her mother's dramatic fainting spells whenever Chidera suggested postponing the wedding. "Your mother sounds like she studied at the same drama academy as mine," Min-jun wrote. "Except mine threatens to disown me every Tuesday." "Only Tuesdays." Chidera typed back, smiling through her tears. "Tuesdays and Thursdays. She's very organized about her disappointment in me." As dawn broke over Lagos, Chidera finally felt calm enough to sleep. But Min-jun's last message stayed with her. "You're not invisible, Chidera. I see you." She fell asleep with her phone clutched to her chest, not knowing that Min-jun wasn't just any businessman in Seoul. He was the youngest leader of the Baekho faction, one of South Korea's most powerful underground organizations. And the moment he read her first message, something shifted in him. Something he'd thought died years ago when his father was murdered and he inherited an empire built on blood and silence. For the first time in a decade, Min-jun felt something other than cold calculation. He felt protective, curious, alive. He opened his laptop and made a call to his head of security. "I need everything on a woman named Chidera Okafor in Lagos, Nigeria. And book me on the next available flight." What Min-jun didn't tell Chidera was that he was already packing his bags. And what Chidera didn't know was that in exactly 19 hours, her entire world would explode. Chidera woke to pounding on her door at 6:23 a.m. Her small apartment in Lekki Phase 1 wasn't expecting visitors, especially not at this ungodly hour. Her mother had a key, Amaka always called first, and the landlord only showed up on rent day. She stumbled to the door in her silk bonnet and oversized nightshirt, expecting maybe a confused delivery person. What she found instead made her blood run cold and her heart race simultaneously. A man stood in her doorway. Tall, impossibly handsome, dressed in all black despite Lagos's early morning heat. His sharp features were distinctly Korean. His dark eyes intense and focused entirely on her. Behind him stood 2 other men, equally imposing, scanning the corridor like Secret Service agents. Chidera Okafor. His voice was smooth, accented, familiar. Her mouth went dry. "Min-jun." He smiled then, and it transformed his entire face from dangerous to devastating. "You said you were drowning. I came to pull you out." "You what how?" Chidera couldn't form a complete sentence. This couldn't be real. The man she'd been texting for the past 3 weeks, the stranger who'd become her closest confidant, was standing at her door in Lagos. In Nigeria. In Africa. You can't just fly across the world because of some texts. I can do anything I want, Min-jun said simply, and there was something in his tone that made Chidera believe him. May I come in? Every rational part of Chidera's brain screamed a no. This was insane. Dangerous. She knew nothing about this man except what he'd told her in late-night conversations. But her heart, that traitorous organ, was already stepping aside to let him enter. Min-jun dismissed his security with a subtle hand gesture. They disappeared down the hallway like shadows. He stepped into her small apartment, and suddenly the space felt impossibly tiny. He looked around, taking in her skincare products neatly arranged on shelves, the small desk where she managed her business, the framed photo of her late father. You have a beautiful home, he said softly. You're actually here, Chidera whispered, still in shock. In Lagos. My door. This is crazy. Yes. Min-jun turned to face her fully. It is crazy. I've done many calculated things in my life, Chidera. Strategic moves. Planned operations. Flying to Nigeria on impulse to meet a woman I've never seen. That's not me. Or it wasn't me. Until you. The intensity in his gaze made Chidera's skin tingle. Min-jun, who are you? Really? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, showing her a news article in Korean with an English translation. The headline made her knees weak. Baekho Organization expands international trade routes. You're a criminal. Chidera's voice came out as a squeak. I'm a businessman who operates in gray areas, Min-jun corrected. My family's organization controls import-export operations throughout Asia. Some legal. Less legal. I inherited it when my father was killed 5 years ago. He said it so matter-of-factly, but Chidera saw the flash of pain in his eyes. That's why you understood, she said slowly. When I talked about family pressure, about living a life someone else designed for you. I never had a choice about my path, Min-jun said. But you do, Chidera. That's why I'm here. To remind you that you have choices. Before Chidera could respond, her phone rang. Her mother. Panic seized her. I have to take this. Chidera, where are you? The Okonkwo family is coming for introduction this afternoon. You need to come home now and prepare. Her mother's voice was shrill enough that Min-jun could probably hear every word. Mama, I told you I'm not ready. Not ready. You're 28 years old. Your mates are on their second child and you're still playing businesswoman with your creams and lotions. Emeka is a good man from a good family. This discussion is over. Be home by noon. The line went dead. Chidera stood there, phone in hand, feeling that familiar drowning sensation return. But then Min-jun was there, gently taking the phone from her trembling fingers. Do you want to marry this Emeka? He asked quietly. No. Then don't. You don't understand Nigerian families. I understand families that treat their children like chess pieces, Min-jun interrupted. I understand duty and obligation and sacrifice. But I also understand that at some point you have to choose yourself. Or you'll wake up at 40, 50, 60, and realize you never lived your own life. Chidera looked up at this impossible man who'd appeared at her door like something out of a fever dream. What are you suggesting? Min-jun's smile turned wicked. I'm suggesting we go to this introduction meeting. Together. And show your family that you've already made your choice. That's insane. You keep saying that word. I'm starting to think you like insane. And as Chidera stared into Min-jun's eyes, she realized with terror and exhilaration that he was absolutely right. At exactly 11:47 a.m., Chidera and Min-jun pulled up to her family home in Seoul. What happened next would either set her free or destroy everything she'd ever known. The look on Chidera's mother's face when she walked into the family compound with Min-jun was something Chidera would remember for the rest of her life. Mrs. Okafor's jaw literally dropped. her hand frozen mid-air while arranging chin-chin on a decorative tray. Behind her, Chidera's aunties, all 5 of them, stopped their chatter like someone had pressed pause on their existence. Chidera Obiageli Okafor, who is this? Her mother's voice could have cut diamond. Min-jun stepped forward smoothly, bowing slightly in a gesture that somehow combined Korean respect with universal charm. Mrs. Okafor, it's an honor to meet you. Park Min-jun. I'm here to ask for your blessing to court your daughter. The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos erupted. Court. Court. Mrs. Okafor's voice rose 3 octaves. Chidera, have you lost your senses completely? The Okonkwo's will be here in 30 minutes. You're wearing jeans and bringing a Chinese man to your introduction. Korean, ma. He's Korean, Chidera corrected, fighting to keep her voice steady. Korean, Chinese, Japanese. I don't care if he's from the moon. You are promised to Emika. I never promised anything, Chidera said, and even she was surprised by the steel in her own voice. You and Daddy's friend arranged this. But Daddy is gone, and I'm the one who has to live this life. The mention of her late father softened something in her mother's eyes, but only for a moment. Auntie Ngozi, the most dramatic of her mother's sisters, jumped in. Do you see what these girls watch on Netflix? Now she thinks she's in a K-drama. Chidera, this is real life. That boy knows nothing about our culture, our ways. With respect, ma, Min-jun interjected, his English accented but clear. I've spent the last 3 weeks learning about Igbo culture. I know that Chidera's father was from Enugu. I know that her family values education, hard work, and respect. I know that marriage in your culture is not just between 2 people but between 2 families. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room of shocked faces. I also know that Chidera is the most remarkable woman I've ever met, and I would be honored to earn your family's trust. Even Auntie Ngozi was speechless. Mrs. Okafor recovered first. You've known my daughter for 3 weeks and you fly to Nigeria. What kind of man does that? How do we know you're not some criminal? Some Yahoo boy from Korea? Something flickered across Min-jun's face. Something dangerous that was gone so quickly Chidera almost missed it. I'm a businessman, Mrs. Okafor. I run import-export operations throughout Asia. Your daughter contacted me about products for her skincare business. We began talking and I realized she was special. So yes, I flew here. Because when you find something rare, you don't wait. Before her mother could respond, the gate bell rang. The Okonkwo's had arrived. What happened next was the most awkward, tense, and strangely empowering hour of Chidera's life. Emeka Okonkwo walked in with his parents, traditional kolanut and schnapps in hand, wearing a confident smile that faltered the moment he saw Min-jun sitting in the place of honor beside Chidera. What's going on here? Emeka's father, Chief Okonkwo, looked genuinely confused. Mrs. Okafor was sweating, frantically trying to salvage the situation. Chief, there's been a small misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, ma, Chidera interrupted, standing up. Her legs were shaking but her voice was clear. Chief Okonkwo, Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo, Emeka. I have deep respect for your family. But I can't marry Emeka. I don't love him. We barely know each other. And I've met someone who sees me, truly sees me, for who I am. Emeka's face turned red. So you're choosing this Korean over me? Over our family's connection? Over everything your father wanted? My father wanted me to be happy, Chidera said, tears stinging her eyes. He wanted me to build something meaningful with my life. He would never want me trapped in a loveless marriage. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, Emeka spat. Don't come crying when this foreigner abandons you. Min-jun stood then, and though he was calm, there was something lethal in his posture. I don't abandon people I care about. And you will speak to Chidera with respect, or you and I will have a very different conversation outside. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Chief Okonkwo grabbed his son's arm. We're leaving. Clearly, this girl doesn't know the value of what she's throwing away. As the Okonkwo's stormed out, Mrs. Okafor collapsed into a chair, fanning herself. "You've ruined us, Chidera. Completely ruined us. The shame. What will people say?" Chidera felt her newfound courage crumbling. But then Min-jun's hand found hers, warm and steady. "Mrs. Okafor," he said quietly, "give me 1 month. Let me prove to you that I'm worthy of your daughter. I'll respect your culture, earn your trust, and show you that my intentions are pure. If after 1 month you still don't approve, I'll leave Nigeria and never contact Chidera again." The room held its breath. Finally Mrs. Okafor looked at her daughter, really looked at her, and saw something she hadn't seen in years. Fire. Life. "Oh. 1 month," she whispered. "But you stay in a hotel. Not in her apartment. And you come to Sunday dinner every week." Min-jun smiled. "Deal." As they left the compound that evening, Chidera's hand still in Min-jun's, she didn't see the black SUV that had been parked across the street all afternoon. She didn't see the camera that had photographed every person who entered and left. And she didn't know that Min-jun's enemies in Seoul had just discovered his greatest weakness, her. The next 2 weeks were a fever dream. Min-jun kept his promise, staying at the Eco Hotel while courting Chidera with an intensity that left her breathless. He showed up at her Sunday dinners, charming her aunties with gifts of Korean ginseng and expensive teas. He helped her expand her skincare business, connecting her with legitimate Korean suppliers and teaching her negotiation tactics that tripled her profit margins. He learned basic Igbo phrases from YouTube, butchering the pronunciations so badly that even her mother laughed. But beneath the romance, darkness was gathering. Min-jun's phone rang at odd hours. He took calls in Korean, switching to that cold, commanding voice that reminded Chidera of who he really was. His security team, which had grown to 4 men, was always present, always watching. On the 14th night, everything fell apart. Chidera was closing her shop in Lekki when 3 men grabbed her. They moved so fast she didn't even have time to scream. A black bag went over her head, zip ties around her wrists. She was thrown into a vehicle and driven for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. When the bag came off, she was in an abandoned warehouse. And standing in front of her was a Korean man in an expensive suit, flanked by armed guards. "Miss Okafor," the man said in perfect English. "My name is Kim Sung-ho. I'm Min-jun's. Let's call me his business rival. You've become quite the problem." Terror froze Chidera's blood. "I don't know anything about his business." "Oh, but you do," Sung-ho interrupted. "You know that he's weak now. Distracted. The great Park Min-jun, who once wiped out the entire Jang faction in a single night, is now flying to Nigeria to play house with a shopkeeper. Do you know what happens to weak leaders in our world?" He didn't wait for an answer. "They die. And everyone they care about dies with them. I've waited 5 years for Min-jun to show vulnerability. And then you appeared. Like a gift." Chidera's mind raced. "So kill me. He'll know it was you." "Oh, I'm not going to kill you," Sung-ho smiled. "I'm going to give you a choice. You leave Nigeria tonight. Disappear. Cut all contact with Min-jun. In return, I let you and your family live. Or you stay, and I systematically destroy everyone you love until Min-jun is so broken that taking his empire will be like taking candy from a baby." "You're asking me to abandon him to save myself?" "I'm asking you to be smart. You've known him for weeks. I've known him for years. He's a killer, Miss Okafor. His hands are stained with more blood than you could imagine. Is that really the man you want to build a life with?" Before Chidera could answer, an explosion rocked the warehouse. The doors blew open in a shower of sparks and debris. Through the smoke came Min-jun, and Chidera had never seen anything more terrifying or beautiful in her life. He moved like liquid violence, disarming Sung-ho's guards with brutal efficiency. His security team flooded in behind him, weapons drawn. Within 30 seconds, Sung-ho was on his knees, Min-jun's gun pressed against his head. "You touched her," Min-jun said, his voice arctic. You put your hands on what's mine. Min-jun, don't. Chidera screamed. Please don't kill him. Min-jun's finger tightened on the trigger. For a moment, Chidera saw the truth of who he was. A man who'd built an empire on fear and blood, a man capable of terrible things. But then he looked at her. Really looked at her. And slowly he lowered the gun. You get one chance to leave Korea, Min-jun told Sung-ho. One chance to run so far that I never see your face again. Because if I do, what I'll do to you will make your nightmares seem kind. Do you understand? Sung-ho nodded, blood streaming from his nose. Min-jun turned to his men. Get her out of here. Not without you, Chidera said firmly. Chidera. Not without you. They left together, Min-jun's arm around her shaking shoulders. In the car, finally alone, Chidera turned to him. Is this always going to be my life? People trying to hurt me to get to you? Min-jun looked broken. I'll leave, Chidera. I'll go back to Seoul and you'll be safe. I never should have come here. I was selfish. I put you in danger because I couldn't stay away. That's not what I asked, Chidera said. I asked if this will always be my life. With you. He met her eyes. I can't promise you normal. I can't promise you safe. All I can promise is that I will burn down the world before I let anyone hurt you again. Chidera should have been scared. Any rational person would be terrified. But instead she grabbed Min-jun's face and kissed him. Fierce and desperate and real. Then teach me, she whispered against his lips. Teach me your world. 'Cause I'm not running. And I'm not letting you run either. But what neither of them knew was that Mrs. Okafor had been at Chidera's shop when she was taken. She'd seen everything. And at that very moment, she was calling every elder in the family, every connection she had, preparing for a confrontation that would force Chidera to choose. Min-jun or her family. Not both. Never both. The family meeting was held at Uncle Chidi's house in Ikoyi neutral ground. Every Okafor elder was present, forming a semicircle of judgment. Chidera sat across from them, Min-jun beside her, his hand firmly holding hers. Mrs. Okafor stood, tears streaming down her face. My daughter, I watched them take you. I saw guns, violence, terror. This is not the life your father dreamed for you. Mama. Let me finish. Her mother's voice cracked. I've been talking to the family. We've made a decision. If you choose this man, this life, we cannot support you. You'll be choosing danger over peace, chaos over stability. We love you too much to watch you destroy yourself. Uncle Chidi, her father's younger brother, spoke next. Chidera, you are the last of your father's line to carry our name forward. If something happens to you in this man's world, our brother's legacy dies. We're asking you to think beyond yourself. Think about family. Think about duty. Chidera felt like she was being torn in two. These were the people who raised her, loved her, celebrated every achievement and mourned every loss with her. How could she choose between them and Min-jun? Min-jun stood suddenly. With respect, I need to speak. The room fell silent. He looked at each elder, then at Mrs. Okafor. You're right to want to protect her. You're right to question me. If I were in your position, I would do the same. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I come from a world of violence. I've made choices I'm not proud of. I've hurt people. But I've also protected people. Built businesses that employ thousands. Created stability in chaos. He turned to Chidera, his eyes intense. When Chidera accidentally texted me that night, I was planning my own exit. I was tired of blood and strategy and emptiness. I decided to dismantle my organization, hand power to my second-in-command, and disappear. But then she wrote to me about feeling invisible, about drowning, and something in me woke up. Min-jun looked back at the family. I can't promise that my past won't follow us. I can't promise perfect safety. But I can promise that I will spend every day earning her trust and yours. I can promise that I'm walking away from my organization. I've already started the process. In 6 months, I'll be a legitimate businessman with no ties to the underground. And I can promise that Chidera will never be invisible again. Not to me, not to anyone. 6 months isn't enough time, Uncle Chidi started. Then give me a year, Min-jun interrupted. 2 years. Whatever it takes. Let me prove myself. Let Chidera choose her own path while knowing her family still loves her. Mrs. Okafor was crying harder now. She walked over to her daughter, cupping her face. Do you love him? Yes, Mama. Even knowing the danger. Yes. Are you willing to lose us for him? That question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Chidera looked at her family, at the faces that had surrounded her entire life. Then she looked at Min-jun, at the man who'd flown across the world because she said she was drowning. I'm not willing to lose anyone, Chidera said firmly. Mama, you taught me that love is sacrifice but also that love is choice. You chose Daddy even though his family didn't approve because he was from a different state. You fought for your choice. Now I'm fighting for mine. She stood, still holding Min-jun's hand, facing her family. I love you all. You're my foundation, my roots, my home. But Min-jun is my choice. My future. I'm asking you, begging you to trust me. Trust that Daddy raised me to be smart and strong. Trust that I know what I'm doing. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Auntie Ngozi, of all people, spoke up. The boy learned Igbo for you. Terrible Igbo, but still. He ate fufu even though it clearly made him uncomfortable. And he didn't kill that man who took you, even though I saw in his eyes that he wanted to. That's restraint. That's change. One by one, the elders began to nod. Finally, Mrs. Okafor stepped back and sighed deeply. 1 year. You have 1 year to prove this wasn't a mistake. But you come home every Sunday. Both of you. And Min-jun, you better make my daughter happy, or I swear by all the ancestors, I will make your Korean mother look like a gentle woman. Min-jun actually laughed. Yes, ma'am. 14 months later, Chidera stood in a garden that somehow blended Korean and Nigerian aesthetics. Hibiscus flowers next to cherry blossoms, talking drums beside traditional Korean janga drums. She wore a wedding dress that combined white lace with osso oak fabric. Her natural hair in an elegant updo adorned with both African and Korean accessories. Min-jun waited at the altar in a suit with a traditional Igbo wrapper draped over his shoulder, looking nervous and happy and completely out of place yet perfectly right. Mrs. Okafor and Min-jun's mother, who'd flown in from Seoul and bonded over their mutual enjoyment of guilt-tripping their children, sat together in the front row, both crying. As Chidera walked down the aisle, she thought about that night she'd sent a text to the wrong number. About how one mistake, one moment of vulnerability, had changed everything. Min-jun had kept his promises. He'd walked away from his organization, transitioned to legitimate business, built a life that was equal parts chaos and beauty. It wasn't easy. There were still threats, still challenges, still nights when their past caught up with them. But they faced it together. The Korean boy who learned to make jollof rice and the Nigerian girl who could now swear fluently in Korean. When they kissed, sealing their impossible, beautiful, cross-continental love story, the garden erupted in cheers from both families. And Chidera knew with absolute certainty that drowning had led her to exactly where she needed to be. In the arms of the man who'd crossed the world to save her, and in the process, saved himself. The reception lasted until dawn. Somewhere between the traditional Korean pyebeak ceremony and the Igbo wine-carrying tradition, between K-pop and Afrobeats on the dance floor, Chidera's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I heard you got married. Congratulations. H. Min-jun saw her face change. What is it? She showed him the message. His jaw tightened. Chung-ho. After all this time. But before he could get angry, Chidera deleted the message and turned off her phone. Our wedding day. A moment. He doesn't get to take this from us. Min-jun pulled her close, breathing her in. Have I told you today that you're the bravest person I know? Only 3 times. You're slipping. He laughed, and in that moment, surrounded by 2 families that had learned to love across continents and cultures, they were simply 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way. And they lived not happily ever after because life is never that simple. But they lived fully, fiercely, and together. If you loved Chidera and Min-jun's story, hit that subscribe button right now. We've got more cross-cultural romance, more drama, and more stories that prove love has no borders. Drop a comment telling us what you thought. Should we do a sequel showing their life 1 year after marriage? What challenges do you think they'll face next? Your comments fuel our next stories, so don't be shy. Subscribe, like, and turn on notifications because you don't want to miss what happens when a Nigerian doctor matches with a Japanese CEO on a dating app. Or do you? See you in the next story.